What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Beware of Bulldogs. Today we have a special episode with the El Camino Superstars. And I got to give a big shout out to the co-host today. You know him, you love him, Ron Jenkins. He put this all together.
Yes,
Ron, thanks for doing this. And let me get the El Camino guys in here real quick. I say El Camino, but they are Fresno State Bulldogs. We have Dwight Pickens, Bryan Burnett, and Aaron Carver here, and we're going to talk. Hopefully, I'm not going to talk, but they're going to talk to us about all their Fresno State memories. And we've been talking for actually quite a while now. Or I've been listening to them for quite a while now. It's been fun to listen to you guys and catch up and just for everyone on YouTube, just so everyone knows, Bryan is making money moves, so we aren't able to see him right now. But I just want everybody to know. And then I was also told that this isn't the whole El Camino superstar group that played at Fresno. We are missing your punter.
Yep. Lance Oberparleiter.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So
Lance transfer back from Oklahoma.
Where he
give Lance a shout out. Hey Lance, man,
What's
where you at?
What's up, Lance?
Bobby.
Ron, I want you to start this off real quick by telling us why you felt the need to bring all these guys together and give the Red Wave this group all at once. What was behind that?
Well, first of all, after being on the show and seeing how you guys do things in terms of representation for those who have played Bulldog football in the past, I felt like these guys needed to be a part of this. And it's because of the camaraderie that they had as JC players, the camaraderie that they had at Fresno State as Fresno State Bulldogs, and the continuance of that camaraderie as friends, brothers, guys who really rely on one another, at this stage of our life as friends. We all have gone through some things in our personal lives, and we have all been there for one another. And I just felt like these guys needed an opportunity to talk about those friendships, to let our listeners and our viewers know that, in these days, in these times, friends are important. And when you get a great group of guys like these guys, it needs to be talked about.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ron. Okay, so Dwight, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Bryan, and then Aaron. I don't know how it is on your screen, but that's how it is on my screen.
Okay.
But I want you guys to start kind of at the beginning, and I know there's a lot of us, so I don't want it to get too long, but kind of the moment in your childhood that kind of made you who you are and pushed you towards football, whether that be a struggle that you had to fight through that made you who you are, or someone in your life that made you something that kind of made you early on and pushed you into the realm of football, then JC and then Fresno State.
Football wise, I was always a football fan. Early years of the greats, O.J. Simpson, the Bills, and all of the Dallas Cowboys and Steelers episodes with Roger Staubach and Terry Bradshaw and Lynn Swann. But actually, I'm like Carver. I didn't play high school football. I played my freshman year. It was called Bees then, football. I was a baseball player, actually, an infielder at Washington in Los Angeles. And I worked, I worked pretty much during those years. And after graduation, I didn't play anything. I was off a couple of years. And then I enrolled in El Camino Junior College, and I wanted to continue to play baseball, but wasn't given the opportunity to play baseball. So I just went and tried out for the football team. I played Pop Warner football. So, I said, hey, let me give football a try. And I was about 145, 150 pounds. First year I got hurt, broke my collarbone. So I got a chance to just study the game and to see, and I got a chance to lift weights and get stronger. And then as my freshman year, I played a little bit. But then it was my sophomore year, which was the breakout year for El Camino, and we had a great team. We were undefeated. We were national champions, and Bryan Burnett and Aaron Carver were contributors to that team. And like football was, as far as recruiting was new to me. So Fresno was one of the first schools who were really hard on me in recruiting, and then I got a chance to see the Bulldogs, and I'm an LA product, so I love the Rams with Henry Eller. So I said, hey, Henry Eller went to Fresno State, and I was recruited by this guy to my left, Ron Jenkins. And I took a recruiting trip, and I looked at the film, and they were throwing the ball like crazy. He said, man, I caught 80 or something passes. Man, just think, if you had 80 something passes, what would that be? So he actually sold me to come to Fresno State, and that's really how it began, and the rest is history. We'll talk about a lot more a little bit later. But yeah, I was a baseball player, and just converted to football, and that's how I actually got involved in football and the love of football, because I wasn't given an opportunity as far as a baseball player when I got to El Camino Junior College.
Oh, that's wild.
So you were
I can't wait
planning on being Ricky Henderson.
I can't wait to see
You
if
were planning on.
Go ahead, Ron.
You were planning on being Ricky Henderson with all that speed, huh?
Hey, baseball was actually, we played a lot of baseball as we were growing up. It's different now, now it's basketball and football. But when my generation, we loved baseball, over the line, and strike out and all those types of things was pretty prevalent when I was growing up.
Yep.
Right.
Bryan, go ahead.
So for my path, it was a little bit different. I started playing Junior All-American in Carson. And so, ironically, my quarterback at the time was a guy named Derek Hill that played for University of Arizona, and he played for the Steelers. He's deceased now, but he was one hell of a wide receiver. And so I got an early taste of success, a lot like Dwight, though. I played baseball to start my career, and I had begged my parents to go into football. Mom wasn't real sure of it, just because of the contact and getting hits and that kind of stuff. But I begged her. It cost a little bit more too. We were a middle income family, and so she finally splurged and said, yep, we're going to pay the $40 fee, I think it was, to play
Right.
Junior All-American football. Yeah. So I started playing the Carson Cowboys. Again, like I said, I ended up playing with quite a few guys that were actually pretty talented. And it kind of grew from there. I started out playing defensive back, didn't know what the hell I was doing. Got ran over by several big, running backs, probably the equivalent of like Aaron's size, playing Junior All-American. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'll try my hand at receiver. So I got to try receiver a little bit, and that was where I found my love for actually playing receiver and continuing on with football. So kept playing, went to Banning High School. Banning's a pretty notable high school when it comes to football. Carson Banning, and I played with a guy named Jamel Holloway, who was my quarterback. Clearly, he was really talented at running the ball, but what people don't know is Jamel was actually a really good passer as well. There's a thing called the Watt Summer Games that is held in Southern California, and we actually won the Watt Summer Games with our team, and that was just a 7-on-7, kind of a T-shirt, go out, throw the ball around 7-on-7. We were really, really good. But going to Banning, clearly, we're not throwing the ball a lot. It was an option team. I think I caught 15 passes my senior year with 7 touchdowns. So not a bad year. But I didn't have the grades to go on to get a scholarship at that point. I played with guys like Sam Sutherland that went to Stanford, Leroy Holt that went to USC. A lot of really good football players that played the game. So I got my taste. So after I left high school, it was kind of like, what am I going to do for football? There was a guy named Jimmy Gasso that was one of our coaches, tried to get me to go to Pasadena, and as it happens, you don't really know. You got plan A, B, and C, and D, E, and F is where most of us operate. My buddy's car, it stopped running, James Gaines, and, it was probably the best thing that could have happened because I ended up going to a school that was local. I went to Harbor first with Coach Ferragamo. Then I ended up going to El Camino, and it just so happens, talked to Coach Featherstone, and then the rest was history. So getting an opportunity to go and play for El Camino, it was just really kind of one of those magical years. We had a really good, deep, talented team, and we even saw, I think, even from, throwing the ball around in the summertime, that our team was really going to be good. Had a guy named Aaron Craver come out, in the summertime. He actually got into one of my running backs. We won't go into that story, but it was pretty storied, pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, I started playing at El Camino, and the rest was history. We did throw the ball a lot more than I was used to, and so it was really kind of fun for me. And I really kind of found my passion for understanding, defenses, understanding how to read defenses and all that stuff. But mine really kind of started from baseball, like Dwight. I started playing baseball, was really fast, had some success. Figured I would throw my hat in the ring for baseball or football, and it just kind of went from there. So got a little lucky going to El Camino with that national championship. We just happened to have a lot of guys from the South Bay that ended up going to the one school at the same time, and the chemistry and the teamwork. And I'll tell you, that was probably the most fun that I've had in my career as far as football, just because we were a team that always stayed together. We were always hanging out together. Outside of football, we stayed together. We worked out all the time together. And so, I think the camaraderie that Ron's talking about, we still have that today because a lot of the premise that we started from, which was friendship, working out together and doing a lot of the things that we did together. So now it's pretty easy for us to stay in contact, and still fellowship with each other. So, and I'm thankful for Ron. Ron was the guy that we, ended up being a roommate with. I was the young knucklehead of the group, and Ron had to be the mentor.
Elder statesman.
He was the elder statesman, and so he helped me, just kind of understand, navigating, at the university level. It's not easy, so you got to keep your head straight, not get into trouble. I have affinity. I like being around the young girls and that kind of stuff. And so it was good to have a big brother there that, kind of helped me keep my head on straight with a lot of things. Those three would probably tell you that I didn't keep my head on the straight as much as I should have, but because of him, I did keep it on a little bit more than I should have.
Wow, that's good to hear, man. We had a great time. We had a lot of controlled fun living in that house, and it was a real special time for all of us, really.
Right. Yeah, that's where I learned how to make spaghetti. Ron taught me how to make spaghetti. With ragu sauce.
That's right, baby. Wow, man, that was awesome.
Yep.
Oh, that was great. All right, Aaron, what you got for us?
So for me, what got me into football was the juice, O.J. Simpson. All the way down to the shoes, the spot built cleats that I think OJ might have been the only one to wear them, other than everybody else that loved OJ wanted to wear the black shoes with the orange bottom on them.
Yep.
And you felt like you were running real fast when you put them on. So that's what really started my passion. And then my mom and dad taking me to the Rams games at the Coliseum after, especially preseason game, where when Tom Bradley was around, we could get into those preseason games for free through the WLCAC. Then through middle school, elementary, middle school, I played a little Pop Warner football. I was a quarterback, running back. I played pretty much everything in Pop Warner. So I played every year up until the time you had to pay. So I played first 3 or 4 weeks of every season. When it was time to pay, I played like I didn't like football anymore and said, man, I don't want to do this. It's stupid. So plus my mom didn't want me to play football. So that would have been the time where I would have had to tell her. So I didn't play full seasons. but baseball, like Bree and Dwight, was my thing. We played it every day, strike out. Even if we played with cans and broomsticks or whatever we had, we played baseball. And when I got to El Camino, same thing. I tried out for the baseball team. The coach seemed like he had his group that he wanted to go with, and I didn't make the team. And I thought I had the test that we did was pretty. I was at the top, and I saw a sign saying baseball tryouts, and I had some jeans on. I cut them because they were running the 40 that day. And they said I cut my jeans off, ran probably like 4.7 or something on 4.8 on grass, and it was on grass. I wasn't warmed up, had tennis shoes on and some jeans.
He probably ran 4.3 going out there.
Right.
That day I didn't even know what the 40 meant at that time, because 40s wasn't that big at the time. So I ran pretty fast, and Coach Justice threw me a couple passes. He says, "All right, go in the weight room with them other guys up there." And so that's when the first day I went up there, I saw Dwight and Bree, and they were just finished playing basketball. Remember, we used to play basketball like 2 days a week competitively, and then we would lift weights afterwards. So, I just wanted to stay out of trouble. I was getting in a lot of trouble where I grew up. So I decided to go to El Camino, which to me back then, I felt like El Camino was 50 miles away, but it was like, I lived in Compton. So it was still out of our area, and I didn't know many people other than Jeff Edwards, who passed away. But I loved the guys. It was probably the most fun I ever had playing sports, just period. Pros, college. Then my brother, so my freshman year, I was just supporting Cass. I picked up blitzes and watched Dwight Pickens just run over everybody. If they had a Heisman Trophy of JC football, Dwight Pickens would have got that. Period. I mean, he was the best player on the national championship team. So you got to say that's the Heisman Trophy winner right there.
Yeah. Right.
So my second year, I was still kind of supporting Cass, and it's weird that Dwight came to the game at Pasadena City College, and that was my breakout game where it wasn't going well, and then I think we were down by 20. I returned the second half kickoff for a touchdown. I had 2 more touchdowns in the second half, and I really think because Dwight was there, I just kind of wanted to show out because he was back, because Fresno had a bye that week. Dwight was a year ahead of us. That was my breakout game, and I ended up starting getting offers. And I decided to go to Fresno State because of Dwight. Because 2 years, you don't have a lot of time to mess up. So I needed to make a decision. I said, "Hey, Dwight, how you like Fresno?" He says, "Hey, man, you need to come here." And Dwight is, if everybody knows, Dwight is the guy who's going to go to class every day. He's going to do whatever he's supposed to do. He's the most responsible, and Ron Jenkins, the most responsible people you ever. So if Dwight says this is a good spot to come, I went there. And so did Bree. So Bree said, "You going?" I'm going. I said, "All right, let's go." We both decided. And to give credit to Ron, my brothers who dropped me off at Fresno, they drove from LA to Fresno, him and his best friend, who are both passed away now. At this time, Ron Jenkins took us all in, Bree, myself, Dwight. Dwight and Ron were roommates, and we were staying with them, all 4 of us in the same apartment. And I needed to stay there until I got my lease at my place. But Ron is, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Boys Town or the boys from the Bowery, Father Flanagan. It's Boys Town is a true story. That's Ron Jenkins. He's Father Flanagan. He's the one who, if Fresno State should have been paying Ron, because Ron kept everything in order, and then he picked Dwight Pickens, who was really the guy who was the next Ron Jenkins.
Wow. So, you guys are see, this is why we needed to do this, because I never, I was just being me. I never knew the sentiment behind all of this, and sitting here hearing you guys say these things, it's emotional for me. But hey, I don't know what to say, man.
You're still waiting to get paid.
Man.
He's still waiting.
Every school needs a guy like that. Most humble. I mean, I remember after our games, he would criticize you. He would be critical. He watched the film. Hey, Craig, you needed to pick that blitz up. You're talking about die-hard Fresno State Bulldog. That's Ron Jenkins. We are too, but Ron Jenkins, that's a Bulldog.
I agree. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Bulldog born, Bulldog bred, baby.
Yep. So it's
I love it.
Other than that, all my other stories is about Jim Sweeney.
Right.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question.
I want to piggyback off these stories and just kind of, everybody's, giving me some flowers. So I think I need to give out some flowers as well. Caleb, we've already had our deal on here, and I talked to you about how I grew up and the things that I experienced. I think out of these guys, me and Craver pretty much had some of the similar things going on, in our backgrounds, with me having 4 brothers killed before I was 23 years old, growing up in foster care, abusive type situation. And in that recruiting scene with Dwight, wanting him to come to Fresno State, I was like, if he could get half the balls that I got, this guy would have a 2,000-yard season. I really felt like that. Unfortunately, it didn't happen like that because they ended up changing the offense from a passing offense to a pro-style offense. And, you could have questioned that decision, being that they had all of these fast guys showing up. The team that I was on, I think Brock was probably the fastest guy, and he ran probably 4.49, 4.45 or something like that. And so going into the next season, it was like they got Pickens coming in, they got Craver coming in, they got all these other guys coming in that had a lot of speed. And it was like, man, these guys are about to break records, and then they changed it up and went to pro style offense. But they went back-to-back bowl games. So again, Coach Sweeney is a hero. But just to piggyback on Dwight, I mean, this guy, all the things that Craver has said about him remains to be true. But the support that I never seen, the support that his family brought. I mean, this guy would bring his whole friggin' family, and they would make this a whole weekend family fun. And I mean, they would come in droves, If they had to sleep on the floor to be there, they slept on the floor. If they had to get a hotel, they got a hotel. If they had to stay up all night, they were just there to support him. And I had never, ever experienced anything like that from a family, particularly a Black family. And I was just so inspired, and they embraced me and made me feel like I was a part of, what they were doing. And I hung out, I hung out with them and enjoyed those moments. And it was real special to be a part of that. And Craver, I mean, this guy was just such a physical presence, I can't see you in a baseball uniform, although that was your sport. But this guy had 90-inch arms. Yeah, muscles everywhere. He was our Herschel Walker, and he didn't like to work out, but the guy was just a physical specimen, and real, serious, but not serious. But he was just quiet, based on the fact that, he had his own experiences that he came to Fresno State with, coming out of Compton, California. And I was happy for him, that he got his chance to do what he needed to do. Hearing his story, wow, here's a guy who's playing baseball. He doesn't know anything about football. And then the next thing you know, he's being drafted into the NFL, Yeah, Bryan, man, this guy, if you said blue, he said green. You said hello, he said goodbye. But looking back on that and seeing the transformation that he's made, and I will say this today, I wouldn't have said it back then, that it's okay to be selfish. You know, it's okay to be selfish, because when you're that way, it's a way that you care about who you are and you care about the direction that you're going. You know, but back then people may mistake that, you know, for arrogance or something like that. But he's always had a strong mind. You know, he's always had a way in which he thought things should be done, and you can't say anything bad about him because he never failed. He never failed. We all made mistakes, you know, but he never failed.
Caleb, did Ron ever tell you he promised me 80 balls a year?
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. Hey, I really thought this. I'm serious.
Why he's giving me the praise now, Caleb. Don't be fooled, Caleb.
No. Hey, I really thought this guy was going to come in, play my position, and they were going to throw him 80 balls, 76 or whatever balls like they threw me. And I knew that he was going to just tear it up. 20 touchdowns, 2,000 yards, you know, or whatever. I thought the same thing about Andre Alexander as well. You know, I was like, man, if these guys get in the situation that I was in, and how I felt confident, because I knew that I was going to come back as a grad assistant coach and coach him. And I was going to teach him everything that I knew. And, you know, just let it land where it lands. But unfortunately, they changed the offense.
But Dwight still had.
But I mean, hey, look what happened.
Still got a chance to get to the pros, and still had 2 great seasons. Bree, I mean, I think we were so connected, that El Camino group. And now, don't get me wrong, I have some buddies that I still communicate with and are just as close from Fresno State. I mean, so we're talking about, I know this is about El Camino and the connection, that how we made this happen. But I know I literally cried the day when Bree tore his ACL. And that was when we were just getting ready to go, because we always been together. It's been, you know, if Bree's making plays, Dwight's making plays. The quick story, when I got to El Camino, they came off a season before where El Camino was last place. And then we started practicing. We had about, 20, 30 practices in, and I'm getting killed at practice. And I was a little bit scared the first game we played, because I'm going, if we're the worst team in our league, then them other teams must be devastating. And we ended up winning the national championship, but it was always, every game was close, last second win, and it was always either Bree or Dwight Pickens or Ricky Wills or somebody making a big play. So when we got to Fresno State, we're getting ready to do the same thing over there. And when Bree tore his ACL before we got started, it was definitely a heartbreaker. It was to see him have to watch us play, and him in with a knee brace on, and it was a heartbreaker.
That was tough.
Yeah, Ryan, tell us about that experience.
Well, I'd never really experienced injuries in high school. I was pretty fortunate. So going to El Camino, worked out, lifted a lot of weights, did a lot of heavy legs. And I think my knees, my ligaments probably got a little bit weak. By the time we got to Fresno, we were working out. And it just so happened I was in a practice, we were working out, and I tweaked my knee. When I got back to Fresno, it popped completely, and that was it. So I tried to come back from it, had the knee brace. When you're a shorter receiver that's fast, it doesn't work out really well when you've got knee, braces on your knee. I had a partially torn knee on the other leg, so I ended up with 2 knee braces, and I just thought, it's not worth it to keep going out here and being frustrated, because I didn't have the release that I needed to, trying to escape off the line, and so it just made sense for me to stop playing at that point. But it was tough. It was tough. My first couple catches, I think, at Fresno were touchdowns. So I thought I was off and running, just like Aaron said, here we go again. But, as fate would have it, sometimes, God's got a bigger plan. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have talked to us about Ron, but talk to me about Coach Sweeney, and Ron brings you in, he recruits you, or of Ron. And what was that first impression of Coach Sweeney like?
Oh man,
Sweeney was charismatic. he was like a god, man.
I was used to playing for coach, they know Coach Peterson too, my running back coach, and he wasn't exactly like Sweeney, but he was a crazy, screaming, made very, very detailed coach who told me, he said, when I got there, he said, "You've never played football." He said, "You haven't played football in high school." He said, "That's perfect. I'm going to teach you everything. You don't have any bad habits. Do everything I tell you to do, and you're going to make it." And then he said, "Screw the other guys, the ones who don't want to listen." And he'd say it right to them. So when I got to see Sweeney and Blaze Bryant, remember the recruiting trip where Blaze Bryant, who almost won the Heisman Trophy at Iowa State, came in, and his dad said, Sweeney was showing up blitz pickup, and he said, his dad said, my son wants to carry the ball, 30, 40 times a game. And Sweeney said, "Well, you get the F out of here then." And I said, "Oh, I want to play for that dude. I want to play for him." Hey, soon when he said that, when I knew that he wasn't just about winning, he was about team and respect. And he wasn't going to pull punches no matter who you were. I said, "That's the dude I want to play for right there." And so that's my Sweeney. That's how I got other than Dwight and Sweeney. And that was on the recruiting trip.
Yes, Sweeney was a different coach, man. He was a great coach, but like our junior college coach, Featherstone, was they were different. Featherstone was like more of a players coach. Sweeney was a player coach, but he was, like Craig said, more stern and direct.
Yeah.
And I remember one time in practice I got hurt or something, and I didn't know, like football was new to me. I'm thinking, I hurt my shoulder. I'm just gonna sit out today. So Sweeney made me, or Ron came and got me. And son said, "Man, you got to practice, man. The trainer didn't excuse you." So when I got out to practice, Sweeney, you this All-American book. What is going on? It was a culture shock to me, man. So it's, Sweeney toughened you up. He toughened me up. And that's what kind of coaches you need. Coaches to tell you the truth and coaches to be on you, and Sweeney was that type of coach, and he didn't care who you were, where you came from. He was just going to tell you his point of view. And that's what I loved about Sweeney.
Yeah, be quite honest.
I experienced back. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just gonna say, to be quite honest, I think we were all afraid of him. Coach Sweeney was a little crazy, and so
a lot.
Yeah, man, and so like Dwight said, we came from a school where our head coach was a surfer, nice guy, very player kind of friendly. Coach Sweeney was that, but he was a lot more because he was really old school in the way he taught. He was a lot like my high school coach, Chris Ferragamo, because Coach Ferragamo, I remember times where he would, in the rain, literally, go head up with guys without pads on. That was kind of Sweeney-ish. They were old school and they believed in what they believed in. And if you didn't like it, it was too bad. So I had my share of run-ins with Coach Sweeney. We had to go to training table in the morning for breakfast. And I used to wear an earring, young guy coming from Southern California. So I've got a hoop earring. And, Coach Sweeney would make the rounds in training table, and he'd get into different guys. And, you would just hope that he wouldn't, pick you out of the lineup, to come sit down next to him. And I drew the short straw one day, and he came and sat next to me on the side where I have my earring. And he got real loud to the point where everybody was silent in the training hall. And it was him yelling at me, asking me if I was trying to ward off evil spirits because I was wearing an earring in my ear. It was, and the irony is, I haven't wore an earring since. I mean, like it, you know, to the guy's point, you know, Coach Sweeney was old school, but he was old school for a reason. I mean, like, you know, I didn't wear an earring after that. I realized like I don't want to draw the attention of this guy anymore. I just want to play ball and do what he's asking me to do, so I don't get yelled at anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I wasn't afraid of Coach Sweeney.
No, go ahead, Ron.
I wasn't afraid of Coach Sweeney. And the reason why I wasn't afraid of him because I had a foster mother who actually shot at her own son. So Coach Sweeney, I wasn't afraid of him.
He was preparing you for Sweeney.
Yeah, I was prepared for Sweeney, but that doesn't mean I didn't have any run-ins with him. I remember one time when I was injured. And I was sitting over there on the side, and this is probably the same reason why I told you, hey, you need to get up and get back in here.
Right.
I was sitting on the sideline, and the guy behind me obviously is next guy up, and we're doing 7-on-7. And every time this guy behind me would catch a pass, Coach Sweeney would be up on the that thing with the bullhorn, and he'd say, "Hey, Ron Jenkins, did you see that catch?" You know, he was basically telling me, "You can sit over there if you want to," you know. And I was back in the afternoon practice. You know, he had a way of motivating through fear, motivating through intellect. When I think back on it, he was a stern guy who believed in psychology. And he used it in different ways for different players. And he knew what would push your buttons, and he knew when to break you down and when to build you back up.
Yep. Sweeney also had a lot of pull all across the country, college and the NFL. He coached for the Raiders. He coached for the St. Louis Cardinals. Almost every scout that I ran into never questioned my toughness, because when I said I played for Fresno State, they would stop and say, "You play for Jim Sweeney?" And they said, if you can play for Jim Sweeney, you can play for anybody.
Right.
The end of it. Because they were
I'll
all
back
scared
that
of
up. When I was into photography, I got a chance to shoot the Rose Bowl. It was Ohio State against somebody, and one of the best college football voices of all time, Keith Jackson. I got a chance to meet him, and he asked me, he said, "Did you play college ball?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Where did you play at?" I said, "I played at Fresno State." He said, "You a tough one, huh? You played for that Jim Sweeney." I said, "Yes, sir." So yes, he was known around, you know, the college world and the NFL world as a tough-nosed, hard-nosed guy, and people knew that if you played and lasted in his program, you were a tough cookie, you know. Yeah.
Now, you guys were all from outside of the Central Valley area, the Fresno area. What was it like coming into Fresno? You talked about the culture in the football team, but what about expanding out a little bit? What was it like coming to Fresno?
Wow.
For me,
I'm gonna answer this right quick.
Okay.
Go ahead, Craven.
No, go ahead, Ron.
No, you go.
Well, for me, you know, like I said, I had been in a lot of trouble as a teen when I got going through high school, not playing, and so El Camino was the best time I ever had. And then going to Fresno, you know, I was still in a little bit of trouble. I mean, I had to work summers on the side of the freeway, you know, because of some of the trouble I was in. So Fresno was a peaceful place for me. You know, people say, why you want to go to Fresno? I said, hey, I love Fresno. It was very peaceful. I stayed in the off seasons. You know, I worked those summer jobs, Budweiser, which is the hardest job. That's why I knew I had to make it. Budweiser anymore. So, but the people, I don't think there's any better town of people who love the players, from the best player down to the player that is the fifth string football player. They all know him in Fresno. Fresno has the best fans.
I agree. The Red Wave was awesome.
Yes.
Mhm.
Football town, and I'm a pretty humble person, so I fit right in Fresno. I mean, any other schools, I don't know. I might have had some problems, but Fresno, nah, I just fit in, by myself, and it was a great community who loved football, and that was the exciting time in Fresno.
Yeah.
My dad grew up in Madera, California. So for me, it was a little bit different. Kind of, my dad growing up locally, being familiar with Bakersfield. And so having an opportunity to go to a school that was close where he grew up, having family up in that space. It just felt good, and then having an opportunity to continue to play with these guys. We just always had a lot of fun together. So I wanted to keep it going. Made sense. Fresno was only 4 hours away from, the LA area where we all, lived. And so it was a drive. You didn't have to take a flight.
Right.
So it made sense,
Yeah, me and Bree took many a trips.
Mhm.
Down 9 in the fall, couldn't see. But
Zero visibility.
A 4-hour
Mhm.
trip. We there.
Yep.
We can come back Sunday and be there for Monday practice.
Monday practice. Yep. A lot of hours on the road.
Yep.
All right, talk to me about the season that you guys, or a couple of the seasons that you guys had in Fresno. Some memories that you have, maybe plays that happened, players that you played with. What's some memories that come to you guys from the playing field, from the gridiron in Fresno?
Well, one of mine was Utah State.
Mhm.
And Dwight had a good game that game. I think Stephen Shelley, God rest his soul, he's passed away too, had a real good game. But the memories of the fans hitting us with pennies and how they hated us. And that was my first time. That season was my first time ever going anywhere to go play a sport, like other than somewhere local where you just drove to. So we flew an airplane to New Mexico State, and Utah State, Utah. And I didn't realize fans were that crazy until we got to Utah State. And they said, keep your helmet on. And the fans were right, like the sideline was only about 6 yards wide, and the fans were right over us. I don't know if you guys remember that. And I mean, fans were brutal, hitting us with stuff and calling us names, racial slurs, all kinds of stuff. So
Yep.
I remember a lot of that, and I'll let these other guys have some too, because there's some other stuff. San Jose had some crazy stuff too.
Right.
I think the biggest one for me was Utah. I mean, in preparation, going up against Scott Mitchell, and he was being made up to be like this really big, time quarterback. And I think for all of us, we saw the opportunity and saw the challenge. And so beating him his first game of the season, I scored. I don't know who else. I don't know if Pick scored in that game, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun to kind of get my college career getting started. So that one was one that I remember. And I remember the California Bowl. I think everybody had a great game in that game. Those were probably two of the most memorable games for me in particular.
Right. I think my first game was against New Mexico, Las Cruces.
Yeah.
I believe Ryan, did your cousin play for New Mexico?
I had a childhood friend. He played linebacker for them.
Oh, okay. But yeah,
no, you mean the Lobos?
Yeah, the Lobos.
Yeah, Myron. Yeah, he played for them. Yeah,
he played. Yeah. So that was my first game in '88. Aaron and Bree were still at El Camino. But yeah, my first game was at New Mexico, and I had a pretty good game that game. And I was, I said, "Oh, this is easy," But then, the next week we played Colorado. We went Boulder, and it was my first game playing on turf. So that was an experience as well. So yeah.
They won the national championship that year too.
Yeah, that was their national championship year.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, we had some fun times. I just remember locker room and practices, and I do remember the games, but the games were, I mean, at El Camino College, we threw the ball all the time. We threw the ball probably, 70% of the time. The most carries I ever had in junior college was probably 20 in a game, but most of my games were, 14, 15 carries at the high and, 5 or 6. So at Fresno, I think that first game against Utah, I think I got 30 carries in the game, and that's like a third of a season for me at El Camino. So, so I had a long run in that game, and people said, "Man, you ran a 4.2 and you couldn't run away from them dudes." I said, "Man, I was tired, man. I was carry number 26." So I know, but I was always just wanting to talk. I wanted to do the after the game so we could talk about the game, just to get together with all the guys.
Yeah.
And, we got some, like, we still hang out. We still go hang out with a lot of guys in Fresno at the state track meet that's in Clovis. That's when we go all get together, and some of our real good friends. It's a lot of Bulldogs that still hang out. So it's that El Camino Bulldog connection. It's still going. Yeah.
Awesome. To Dwight and Carver. So you guys, you had this background in baseball, and then you started playing football, and you saw how things was working out. When did you guys come to the point where you were like, "Hey, I probably could play on the next level," or did you ever feel that way? Was it a surprise? How did you mentally, make that transition, and when did you feel like that was a possibility?
Well, for me, it was after the year at El Camino, really, for me, and also seeing that Fresno throw the ball. My 2 years at Fresno, I caught 60 balls total. My sophomore year at El Camino, I caught 60 balls 1 year. So I figured, hey, I'm had a pretty good 40 time at the pro day at Fresno, and then they send you little booklets, and they rank certain players, what rounds or whatever. So it started getting serious for me after my junior year at Fresno, that I said, hey, I can do this, So for me, that's what it was for me during that time.
Well, mine was Dwight again. It's I'm playing. I had probably 7 or 8 good games, and then Dwight said, "Hey, Craig, you rank number 2 in the whole in college. You rank number 2 in as far as running backs. As far as the next draft, that was my junior year, and that's the year Emmett came out. Dwight had a book. I said, "What are you talking about?" And Dwight had the book. He said, "Man, my agent gave me this book," and I go, "Number 2." I said, and that was when Emmett was coming out, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't, because Sweeney wasn't going to talk about the NFL, and because he wanted you to focus on what was going on,
right,
and task at hand. And so until Dwight showed me that booklet, and I had to look at it to make sure it was real, too. That was that moment to where I started feeling like, now I gotta make plays. I was just playing for fun first, and now I'm all of a sudden playing for a different reason. So that was the moment. I don't know if you remember that, Dwight.
Sweeney talked to me about.
Go ahead.
Sweeney talked to me about the NFL. He told me you're not going.
Brian, you funny.
Well, he said that to.
Hey, that's a true story.
Hey, one time Sweeney
that's a true story.
I think it was our bowl week, and Sweeney thought Craig was gonna go in the draft his junior year, and remember that story? Yeah. He got mad at Craver.
So I wasn't coming out And I was just happy to be. I was loving football. I wasn't coming out. So Sweeney, for some reason that day, remember, he loved me. Everybody said Sweeney's Aaron Sweeney's pet and all of that. And then we got to that practice for the Cow Bowl, and he had the towel wet and everything. He was ready to go. And he wanted me to run at Ron Cox and cut him and us to go live. Because remember, Ron didn't have to practice, really. And so I told Ron I was coming. I was getting ready to cut him, and I went in there real soft. And Sweeney came running at me with the towel, and I came back and I'm running kind of around because I don't want him to, I don't want to bump into Sweeney. I'm not saying he was going to hit me for sure, but he had been known to be a little bit physical. So
I've been here.
So I asked Mushagan, I'm like, well, Moose, what's wrong with him? He said, well, he thinks you're going to come out early. And Sweeney starts saying, Johnny Johnson at San Jose, you can't hold his jock strap. You are not ready to play. And I was like, Coach, I'm not coming out. He says, you are a bullshit artist. I said, I'm not coming out early, Coach. And he said, if you lie to me, I will ruin your career. That was that night.
Wow.
And but I had no intention. But I think Ron, this came from Ron's camp. I think his agent was trying to get me that year, and I'm talking about Ron Cox. And I think he wanted to try to create a story. And Ron Cox told me, he said, man, the way he treated you, you should just come out. And I said, no, I'm staying. So that was it. And my mom didn't want me to come out either.
He could have.
That plays a big deal.
He could have.
When you think back about it,
So his junior year, he was slated as the number 2 running back.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Wow.
Bray broke that Fresno State record that his junior year of yards.
Right.
Yeah, I think James Williams he broke that record.
Yeah. So it was I was having too much fun, and I never thought about the injury part. I never thought if I come back the next year I'm gonna get hurt. I didn't think about that. And the next year was a rebuilding year for the offensive line. I mean, our offensive line ended up being better. They had a lot more talent, but that offensive line we had my junior year was all seniors.
Yes.
Some dudes they knew what they were doing. Phil Lujan, and we had some guys on that offensive line. And then my next year,
Melvin Johnson.
Yeah, Big P.
Yeah, it was Skidmore was
Skidmore. Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of
we had
Paul Vial. Yeah, they had some studs.
Whittaker had already went to the NFL.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So the next year was the line was just young, and and they weren't used to that. And then Coach Hill left too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was the O-line coach. That's
Coach
right.
Hill left. Coach Dole was great too, but Coach Hill was put the pass protections together. He was almost like offensive coordinator too. So Coach Hill was he instilled a whole lot of confidence in you when he gave you the game plan. You knew it was the right game plan. Yeah.
So what did you guys learn from Coach Sweeney that you guys have taken on into your careers and after football?
Every setback is just temporary. Just a temporary setback. He always talked about being a fist, and that's how we were at El Camino. That like has been mentioned by Bryan, and Carver. That's the most fun I ever had in any level. It was at El Camino, but it was that fist because we were all together. You know, no matter what, we were together before the game, during the games, after the game, and we had some fights after the game, but we all stood together. And Craig was always in the middle of it.
Yes, he was. Yep.
But I would never be starting it. People would just come at me and like, "Hey, man." Like, I remember that straw hat pizza.
Straw hat.
And some guys just thought that I was a gangbanger, and they came at me, and I'm going, "Why does everybody want to fight me all the time?" and in our whole team, it looked like a movie. It was a movie, and that bonded us.
You know, hey, you know why?
It was probably
they wanted
somebody
to fight
that
you
from
because you
something
were.
happened in the past. But
They wanted to fight you because if you get rid of the biggest, strongest guy, then you're good.
Yeah. So my thing that I always take, and I take it in every aspect, is Sweeney would say, "It looks like." Like, remember, he would say, "Looks like punt, looks like kick." He wouldn't say, "Watch the fake," because what we're watching for. Okay, he's just saying, "Punt team, get ready." No, looks like punt. And so when I see somebody who might be a nice guy, I'll say, "He looks like a nice guy." I don't know if that's a nice guy. Or, with sketchy situations, I take it into every aspect. Looks like a safe neighborhood. It might not. So I tell my kids, I say, "Looks like." They say, oh, Dad, let's go over there. That's over here. We can set up our picnic over here. It looks like, and I say, "Yeah, it looks like a good area." Then we get over there, there's a whole bunch of glass and different stuff on the ground. And the same thing I teach my football players is looks like. Don't get fooled, because you use that same term in everything you do. You probably not, even if you still get fooled, you knew that it was something that was possibly coming. So that's what I mean. There's a whole lot of other ones, but that's the main one I use.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really like what Dwight said. The fist. Coach Sweeney was always teaching. He was never satisfied. With where we were. It was always about trying to get better. And so our teams were always really, really strong and pretty bonded together. We had that when we came to Fresno from El Camino, and I still carry that today. I build teams now for sales from a business perspective, and so it's always been a part of it. So I'm pretty thankful for Coach Sweeney, what he instilled in us with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me about what you guys did after football at Fresno State, and kind of where you guys are at now.
Well, for me, after Fresno, I got drafted by Frisco, 8th round, and for the Niners. They had just won the Super Bowl. So I got drafted by them and didn't make the team. Coming out of Fresno, I was like 3rd or 4th in the nation punt returns, which was my first year. My senior year was my first year doing punts, and I believe I was like 4th in the nation. Number 1 in total yardage, but like 4th in average. And I get drafted by Frisco. Before camp, I pulled a hamstring. So it was kind of really tough. Got cut, didn't make the team. Following year, that's when the World League had started up. I don't know if you're familiar with the World League. They had the teams in San Antonio and Raleigh-Durham and London and Germany. So played in the World League for a couple years. The following year, I was a free agent with the Chiefs, actually. Stephon Page was still there. So we bonded and had a good time. And I actually broke my shoulder or something, and then I was released. I was cut, actually injured. And after that, I said, you know what? Ron, as we always talked about, Ron, the big brother, there's always something we can fall back on. And that was education. And actually, Ron gave me the couple applications for certain jobs. And And the job that I started was I was an investigator with alcohol beverage control. So I got that job, and that's why I was doing that. And I was doing taxes on the side while working there. And I worked for the state of California for about 10 years. And then I said, you know what? I need to just work for myself. So I just, you know what? I'm just going to do this business. And I've been doing it ever since. And it was the best thing that I ever did, was to be able to work for myself. And that's what I've been doing. I've been have a tax business, and I do life insurance, and that's what I'm doing today. And like I said, working for yourself was the best thing I could have ever done.
Dwight, I just want to, you stepped out on faith. And for those of you who don't know, Dwight is our Bible study guy. He's the guy that runs our Bible studies. He teaches from the Bible. He's very good at it, very knowledgeable, very spiritual man. And so, thinking back to that business, hey, you stepped out on faith.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I said, let me just, because I had a good job, benefits, the state, have great retirements and all that. But I said, you know what? It just was, it was stepping out on faith and believing that, whatever God has given me, he's going to, he brought me this far. He's not going to leave me now. So like I said, once I did it, it just worked, and things happen. And I've been doing taxes for over 20 years now. So it's been a real blessing to me.
He's been doing my taxes since I got out of college. So, I mean, I trust the guy. Yeah, for me, I got hurt.
He got me too.
Yeah, I'm sure. He's doing a lot of taxes. He do a good job with them. So I got hurt, going into my senior season. And I ended up coming back home and started working. Did some smaller jobs. I'm a humble guy, so it really wasn't about title or any of those things. And so I kind of worked for a healthcare company, making deliveries. Got a chance to be in the CHP, so I was a CHP officer for about 3 years. Wasn't the right job for me. I'm a people person, so I like to be around people, and not in a negative way. So I figured, I went back into healthcare. And so over the last probably 20 years, I've been in healthcare. Currently today, I'm a vice president over a hospice agency, and I oversee 3 states. Had the blessing of going to get my master's degree from Harvard. Got a chance to go to Harvard in Boston. So I've been very, very fortunate with a lot of different things. But currently today, I'm still in healthcare and independent business owner, but I also work for a pretty large organization overseeing 3 states.
For me, I got drafted and played for the Dolphins, Broncos, Chargers, and Saints. Credited for 10 years, physically played 9. Had a pretty good time. Got a chance to meet a whole lot of people. I know getting drafted in the NFL for any player, all the players are good. I mean, if Dwight, when Dwight got drafted by San Francisco 49ers, that's Lawrence Taylor. John Taylor, Jerry Rice, all studs, some of the greatest football players ever. Roger Craig's there. And Miami Dolphins, and this is one of my buddies, Scott Miller, becomes a starting punt returner for the Miami Dolphins. He made the team. And Dwight Pickens, if I'm starting a team with and I'm thinking the whole time, I used to tell Brian and whoever would listen, man, Dwight would be our starting punt returner here in Miami. And it just depends on who you play for. That's why they shortened the draft, so that they drafted 5 or 6 rounds, and then you can go to the team that fits you best, so that you have a shot at making it. That's why Terrell Davis is a Hall of Famer now, because of the way the draft is. But I had a pretty good career, and a lot of it I attribute to Sweeney and my teachings at El Camino and Fresno State. They taught us a lot of stuff that a lot of NFL guys didn't know. A lot of guys, a lot of schools have maybe more talent than Fresno, but that's probably why they don't teach as much, because they don't have to. They can just run man and zone all day long. But after I retired from football, I went straight into coaching. As a matter of fact, Dwight came over to Centennial High School with me for a minute, and Centennial had lost, I think, over 100 consecutive games at that time, somewhere around there, and it was a tough situation over there. And by the time we got to year 3, we started winning and ended up making it semifinals of the playoffs there. So my career I always wanted to be a coach. Even when I was a kid, I wanted to coach. So I ended up coaching football and coaching track over in Compton, and donated, volunteered for 5 years there, and, pretty much paying back my debt to the community. I owed that, because I had a few people that helped me pay some of my apartment bills and stuff to tell me to get away from over here. I don't want you over here. You got a chance to make it, get out of here. So 5 years in Compton, and then ended up going through a divorce and ended up moving back to Irvine with my kids, and started coaching there. Started doing a food truck when the food truck wave was real hot. Had a food truck, started a restaurant, which was pretty successful. But then my youth nonprofit organization, which I was called Lightspeed, I've been running that since 2002. That's how I bumped into Dwight. Was Dwight's son Andre was running for a Quiet Fire track club, and my kid was running, and I saw Dwight out there at the track meets, and we started talking every weekend again. And his son played at Arizona State and was a phenomenal football player. So now I'm just, enjoying myself. I love coaching. I said the one thing about Sweeney, but pretty much everything I did at Fresno State and El Camino, we do it at my high school. When we do special teams, light them up. We do all that. Everything stuff I learned, I'm not reinventing the wheel. The stuff that I know that worked and inspired me, I use it, and I try to do the same teachings to my kids that I come across.
You walk around with a wet towel?
But you know what? I tell them the stories. I say, right now, Sweeney would have gone upside somebody's head in this situation right here. So the kids say, "Well, you can't do that to us, coach." Different time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I always ask this question when I have someone on, and I asked Ron this question, and you guys don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but I'm a big Jesus guy, and I know Ron is as well, and Dwight sounds like you are. But one of the questions I always ask is, did faith play a role in your journey, whatever that may be? Whether if I'm a Jesus guy, but if you had some sort of belief or faith in Christ that got you through these times and got you to where you are today?
I'm a big Jesus guy also, Caleb. Faith is this, that if it wasn't for my faith, even at El Camino, we had a Coach Ingle who was the assistant coach, offensive line and assistant coach at El Camino. We would have these Bible studies, before the game, each game. And that just carried, I felt right at home, because I was always a proponent of studying God's word and his faith and my faith actually in him has brought me to where I am, and it still exists. So yeah, I'm a big Jesus guy and faith and like Ron said, Bible study and learning. But yeah, from El Camino, from before the game, we would have a Bible study, and it just carried forth to Fresno, to where I am today.
We wore a towel at Fresno or at El Camino, Philippians 4:13. I could do all things through Jesus Christ. We wore that towel all year long. We went undefeated. So I think, we were all Jesus people. I'm still a Jesus fan. I mean, you know, I'm a Christian, and actually the guys that I was meeting with tonight for this potential business, part of the mission statement is around faith, because you know, faith without works is just not, you know, it's not easy to do. So I've always been thankful to have, you know, that confidence, and that, you know, that comes from Jesus Christ for me. So it makes life easier for me. You know, we all got things that we run into from challenges, and, you know, things that we go up against. Going through Harvard was a very difficult thing. CHP, you know, you run into these challenges and times in life, but I've always had faith that God is going to help me find a way, and He always have. You know, so I'm a big proponent.
Same here. You know, when I was going through some tough times and thinking that, you know, my life was going to go and it's just, my life was just going to be in the streets. That's what I was thinking. And, you know, I had, like I said earlier, had done some stuff, some riding in stolen cars, hanging around with drug dealers, that kind of stuff. And never really got in trouble. And then finally, when I'm actually not doing anything, but I'm around some of this trouble, I end up in jail. And I remember, you know, one of the guys that I knew had committed a murder, and I didn't want to be part of that. But since I knew him, they said, we're going to put it on you. You don't have a lawyer. If you don't tell us where this guy is, we're going to put it on you. And I remember being locked up and saying, you know, God, if you can just help me out in this situation right here, I promise I will go on the right path. I will do this. I will commit to and literally, guy I went to high school with, Paul Ford, who was working in the sheriff department, was in the county jail, and he said he was calling the names out, and they normally go by they call your last name out, you give them a serial number. And he looked at the name and he go, Craver. And I was and they said, is this Aaron Craver? There's about 60, 70 people in there. He says, Aaron Craver, stand up. He said, what you doing? So he talked to me literally 7 or 8 minutes after that prayer and took me to the front, got me out of there, and I never came back. Now, I was supposed to come back, but I went to Fresno, and I know Dwight remembers.
I remember.
They came out there on that field. They said, Craver, when you leave the field, don't go to the locker room. Just come straight to Sweeney's office. So the police were there and said, you know, we're going to have to take you back down to L.A. So I didn't just leave. I left everything. But faith got me through that. And that's why when I retired from football and people say, you can take a better job. You can go work in college. You can go work at an NFL, get an NFL job. And I said, but maybe because I don't keep my word to God, I die early, or something happens to somebody in my family. There's going to be some ramifications for me not keeping my word. And so it was that moment. And when I went, so that's why when I saw Dwight and Bryan and I first met those guys, that's why I was always had a smile on my face. When I went on my recruiting trip, I didn't even go to a party. Remember, I hung out in my hotel room.
Right.
I didn't go out. I said, this is the life right here. I'm fine just right here in this hotel room. I am at peace. And Sweeney said, I don't think you had a good time because they said you didn't go out with the guys. I said, Coach, I was just happy to be in a room with an air conditioner and cable TV.
Wow.
And so Sweeney I can tell he had a soft spot for me because I always spoke the truth to him. He said, you know why we're here? And I told him what I did. And he said, because Sweeney would rather you be a knucklehead that tells the truth than a real nice guy that lies.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I do have faith.
Well, thank you guys for sharing. I appreciate it. Ron, anything you want to say after all that?
No, I'm good, man. This is great. It's great.
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome.
how can the Red Wave support you guys? You're coaching, you're running different businesses, you're working for yourself. I mean, I need my taxes done, and it's tax season right now. So. But how can the Red Wave support you guys if in any way?
I do have a youth organization, and there's always some communities or small pockets. If everybody can't save the world, but we can focus on the people we know and let everybody else do their part. And so I have my community that I reach out to, that I try to service, and I know we all have love for communities where we grew up, but I know that my calling was to run this youth organization, and that's all I do. I love what I do.
And what's the name of the youth organization?
It's called Lightspeed Sports. It used to just be called Lightspeed Track Club. Now we do all kinds of stuff. Girls, boys. We help kids get instruments that can't afford it. We do help kids pay for junior, like some super talented kids that might qualify for the Junior Olympics. We help those kids raise money so that they can go. That's always a struggle for kids in urban areas, South Central LA, West Side of Fresno. It's I got one of my kids that I coach is coaching over at North at Cedric. Remember Cedric Pulliam, Dwight?
Yeah, track guy.
He's over coaching. Cedric is one of the best coaches in California now in track. So and he's helping youth, and he's got a club too. So I'm happy.
Oh, that's great. Bryan, I'll go to you. How can we support you? And also in that answer, I'd like to know what was harder, being a CHP or Harvard?
Definitely Harvard. Harvard was tough. It was a condensed program. So that was really, really tough. But the CHP was no joke either. I would say, honestly, for me, I would just, really love to see Fresno continue to recruit into the Southern California area. Sports is changing quite a bit with the NIL and a lot of these different things that are going on. I know my high school has changed considerably since I've been there, and they don't seem to have the talent pool that we had back in the day. But I would just love to see Fresno continue to recruit locally, because I think those local kids, it's a great school. It's not far from home. Your family can still come see you. You can get home on the weekends. To me, I just think, I would really love to see Fresno continue to invest in and still recruiting locally in the Southern California market. Outside of that, it's probably more about what I should be able to help do for the Red Wave. I need to probably spend a little bit more time trying to support it. Yeah, look at my boys. They're like, look, you need to spend a little more time with the Bulldogs. I get it. It's time.
Right. I'm with you, Bree. Ron is a big proponent of the community and youth. So whatever Ron asks me, I'm in.
Yep.
Especially if it's young people involved.
Yep.
Just say the word, and I'm in it, because like golf. I've never had a golf course right down the street from my house. Chester, Washington, in Los Angeles. Had I known, because I'm a junkie now. If you didn't know, if Ron didn't tell you, I'm a junkie now on golf. Ron will tell you. I golf now.
He smoked out.
I had clubs for the longest. I would go to the range, but I never got on the court. And Ron, for like 20 years, come on, pick. Then I finally got on the course, and it's all over. It's a sad case.
Get him on.
You better keep doing people's taxes.
Right.
That's what allows him to do it.
Right. Yeah, that's what allows me. God has blessed me to work 4 months real hard, and then the rest of the 8 months, I just do whatever I want to. So that's a blessing from God. But yeah, I love golf. Me and Ron, we go through the Golf Chronicles, and me, Aaron, and Bree, we used to get out there, and we need to get back out there. But yeah, golf is a way of life.
My back is feeling good now.
Right.
I want to piggyback on the what I would want the Red Wave to do, if you allow me. I first of all, I would ask the Red Wave to see us through this NIL misery. you know, and support the program. The NIL situation is here, and it's not going anywhere. And you know, just be there to support that. But just understand that in supporting the student athlete, I don't care if it's baseball, basketball, football, in supporting the student athlete, you guys are allowing young men like us, particularly those young men who come from situations that are unfortunate, because I don't think my life could be as it is. I don't think could have influenced the young kids that I've influenced if it had not been for my experience at Fresno State, and having Fresno State embrace me as a person, as a player, in that community, having worked for Fresno County Juvenile Hall, and then taking my career to the state and doing some of the things that I've done as a counselor and helping young men who came out of situations like mine. So not everybody makes it to the NFL, but as a matter of fact, more of us go into mainstream careers than they do the NFL. And the Red Wave plays a big part in that, with them supporting the student athletes on the campus of Fresno State. So I would ask that they always remember that it's bigger than football, it's bigger than sport. And they're changing lives.
I agree. We had a when we went to the reunion, Ron, we spoke to the kids. Like you say, football, I mean, 1%, less than 1% make it. So it's always best to have a backup plan. And Ron always told me that, hey, Pick, get your degree. you know, you're rated this high, but hey, all things it like Aaron said, it may look like, because I was projected second to fourth round, but I got drafted in the 8th round. But have something to fall back on, and I believe that as former Bulldog athletes, we can come back. Like Bryan said, what can we do for the Red Wave and for particular students at Fresno State, that we can come back and contribute and speak and give them facts about life? That's what Sweeney always about. About, after football, what are you going to do? So as former athletes, I think we can be more involved, as Bree said, in coming back and speaking to the athletes or whoever. It doesn't matter what sport, the young people at Fresno State. So I'm, just give me a holler and I'm with it.
I'm in.
I'm here.
All right, you got it. I'm gonna remember that. Don't worry. Well, guys, I appreciate it. Well, I learned a lot from you guys tonight. I had fun listening to you guys reminisce. And Ron, thank you for setting this up. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you got families to join and work to do, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
for having us on.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
The last thing, Ron, you can take it from here, but the last thing I need from everybody is a go Dogs, right? or as Ron once told me, that he wants people on here to bark like a bulldog, do the bulldog bark.
Yeah,
right, Ron?
I want you guys to give your best bulldog bark.
That's Jethro is the best.
No, Dwight. Let me hear your best bulldog bark. Come on,
bulldog bark is weak.
There we go.
That's all I got. Jethro is
Brian.
Jethro.
No. Our guy was Fred Wilburn.
Fred Wilburn.
Oh,
Okay.
Have you ever heard Fred Wilburn bark?
Yeah, I heard it.
Oh man, this guy would have you looking down, running, as if a bulldog was really chasing you. He had a hell of a bark.
Eric Martin.
Oh, Eric Martin.
E double.
Eric Martin.
Yeah.
E double.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Caleb,
Yeah.
Caleb, I want to say thank you to the #1 Fresno State podcast, Beware Bulldog podcast.
Oh yeah.
The one and only.
That's what's up.
Yeah, it is.
This guy has
You frozen.
Good. Yeah, good. He's gonna say some good things about me. It cut out. That's perfect timing.
Love the Bulldog too.
Yeah.
Bulldog.
Born.
You was frozen.
Oh,
Ron.
You was frozen for a second, Ron. Oh, he's still.
I've been frozen all night. So what are you doing?
We know that his podcast is #1.
Right.
I had to make sure it cut out before you said good things about me.
Beware Bulldog podcast.
Yeah.
Beware Bulldog podcast. Okay.
Beware Bulldog podcast, #1 Fresno State podcast.
That's awesome.
All right.
Yes, it is.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.